Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Bearded Wholesome and All Things Baltimore. I'm the host, Matt Trigger, and with me today is a special guest, a Ravens Super Bowl champion, the knockout artist himself, Bernard Pollard. How you doing, Bernard?
I'm good, man. I'm over here. I'm looking at. I don't know why my camera is blurry, but you over here crystal clear, man. So I'm trying to figure that out right now.
For Bernard, I'm gonna credit my wife. She got me a 4K Ultra ring light camera for an upgrade for Christmas. So shout out to my wife for that. That was a
Hey,
solid move on her
that's big
part right
time.
there.
Hey, you better
It's
be
big
doing her
time.
right, brother.
Oh, I try. I try. She takes care of me. Um, so how's everything going, man? You were dipping your toes in a little bit of everything these days.
Yeah, brother. We were talking a little bit ago. I'm an Uber driver that doesn't get paid. So we got basketball games, volleyball games. What is it? 7-on-7 training and DB training and workouts and. Dude, it's a little bit of everything, but it's fun. These are the memories, and take advantage of it while I can, and we having a blast with it though. But yeah, I'm in a little bit of everything, man. Photography, videography, I'm doing it all.
And I see that you're involved with a race team.
Oh yeah. I'm doing a lot of stuff with NASCAR. I'm signed with Ally, who covers the 48 car. Alex Bowman driving that car, who's a freaking beast. Yeah, bro. The more you can do, I look at it and I live a life, brother, where I'm blessed. I thank God for what I have and what I'm doing. And yeah, so like I said, I'm dibbling, dabbling a little bit of everything.
And that's fantastic, Bernard. Not many players dabble in NASCAR. How's that been for you?
It's been a lot of fun. A couple of years ago, bro, I wanted to learn about it. I've heard from whether it be fans or people who really don't know the sport, talking about what the sport doesn't allow and all this other stuff. And I think we all understand the things behind the Confederate flag and all the racism that have happened with the sport before. And I wanted to get a chance to learn it for myself. And it's been truly a blessing just to be able to go from football to learning that this sport has strategy. You have technology, you have teamwork, just the fan base is phenomenal. The drivers are different from football players. They're different from the type of athlete that I've been used to, but at the same time, they're still athletes. And I'm talking about, brother, it has been the last, 2.5, 3 years has been so much fun. For me to learn this, and I'm even doing iRacing where I'm racing on a rig where you always race a real person, whether they're in the States or out the States. It's been a lot of fun, man.
That's
And
wild.
yeah, bro, it's crazy.
Hey, I'm glad that you have a lot of passion for that, and I can tell by the way that you're describing it. And I'm sure it's a much different grind than the everyday life that you lived in the NFL.
It's definitely different, man. You've got to be locked in and focused for both sports. Obviously the game of football, I have to do so much. We have to do so much in the weight room, film study, in the training room, feeding our bodies the right way. And it's similar in a way when it comes to NASCAR, but you got to understand you're relying on, you know, so many different minds to be able to keep that car running at top speed and as you're changing, you're hitting different turns and coming out of one, going into 1 and 2, coming out of 3 and 4, whatever it may be. That car has to maneuver a certain way. And you got your crew chiefs and different people. They're the OC and the DC. You got your pit crew and you got just your spotter who's looking from above for you, brother. It is phenomenal, and it's truly a blessing, man, and I love it.
That's great, man. I'm happy to see that you've got yourself entrenched in another field that is unique to what you have experienced for the last 20 years of your life. Before we kind of get into a little bit of the modern day questioning that I wanted to ask you, let's kick it back to your days as a Raven. When you were a free agent, what drew you to come into Baltimore? Was I obviously playing with Ed and Ray and Suggs was an alluring feature. Was there any outside factors that really drew you to the Ravens?
To be honest with you, Matt, like I didn't want to come to Baltimore. So, for me, it was one of those things because I'm such an alpha male. I thought it would be a clash with your Rays and your Eds and your Halodis and your Terrells. And I thought it would be a clash. And, so when I left, because it was the lockout that happened in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. So we moved out to LA. And so we moved out to LA just to see what it was like. We didn't really understand, the West Coast lifestyle. So we just wanted to see, right? We had 2 kids and we wanted to figure out what that was like or to see what it was like. And I tell you right now, brother, for everybody who live out in LA and love it, like hats off to them. We quickly found out the traffic is crazy. You've got to time everything that you do. You got to schedule it out because you're going to be stuck in traffic for a long time. It was like an hour and a half in traffic just to go to the grocery store. That was like, 2 exits away. So, things like that, brother. It was, we were living that life. And when they lifted the lockout, I ended up talking with Baltimore and I talked with a couple other teams and, I was my own agent. I had Eugene Parker who's passed away and God rest his soul, but he was one of the guys who's from Fort Wayne, Indiana. And he was kind of an advisor for me just to help me out, and he's somebody I've known for a long time. I played, basketball with his son. So, he was just like, yo, Bernard, I think this might be kind of cool. And I'm like, yo, man, like, obviously I got to make the decision. I got to negotiate with Ozzie. I've got to figure, all this stuff out. So, when I end up talking to Baltimore, I never once talked to anybody but Ozzie. Ozzie was a guy who, we had lengthy conversations and, he was just like, yo, Bernard, you are the piece we need. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. But at the same time, I'm like, Ozzie, I don't know if my alpha male is going to clash, with Ray now, you know what I'm saying? Because I know how they play. I know how I play. I know the type of, the things that I did pre-snap, out the huddle, in and out the huddle for my team's pass. I knew that I figured it would be a hindrance and a clash with, especially Ed being in the secondary and being who he was. But, to be honest with you, brother, it was a blessing in disguise because never one time after I negotiated with Ozzie and, it was, like I said, it was Ozzie and I. It was never Ozzie, myself, and John Harbaugh. John didn't want me in Baltimore. John felt like he thought that either Haruki or the other safety,
Nakamura.
Haruki or the other kid out of Notre Dame, the boxer,
Tom Zibikowski.
He thought that they were, going to be the guys that was going to get it done. And so when I signed, I told Ozzie, I don't sign. I'm not signing here to sit the bench. I'm not, the money that I was getting paid that year, the things that I was going to do. He was just like, yo, he was like, don't worry, coming here. He's like, you're the missing piece. We're going to win a Super Bowl with you. We can't win one without you. So I signed and it was one of those things, bro. When I got there, came in the locker room, obviously Vontae Leach, Jacoby Jones, those were guys that I played with before and I had relationships with. I knew some of the other guys, but stepping into that locker room, brother, it was like everybody else was me. And that, I tell people that all the time, as far as stepping into the Baltimore Ravens locker room, it was a brotherhood like no other, like playing with 10 other guys on defense, watching the special teams, watching the offense go. Everybody had the same mentality. It was a jungle, right? Like we all kind of had different personalities, but we all played the same. We all kind of, our mentalities, so I'm talking about both ends of my mouth. Our mentalities were we were just vicious. And that's what I loved about playing in Baltimore. And, I hit a bump in the road with Harbaugh because, like, once again, Harbaugh did not want me there. So I think it was the first couple games of the season, Harbaugh didn't want me in the starting lineup. And so me and Ozzie going back and forth, clashing, because I'm looking like, Ozzie, this is what we negotiated. I beat these guys out of position. I beat them out the position. I wouldn't never, ever worried about them. But at the same time, I'm like, they don't deserve to start. I came here to start. I'm getting paid starter money. We need to do something. And so he had to have a talk with John. And finally, Ozzie kind of pulled his card and, just let him know, like, look, this is the starting lineup. I think it was game 3, if I'm not mistaken, game 3 or 4, and the rest was history.
And quite a history you guys made. I wanted to ask you, and I know you probably get this question from Ravens fans a lot, and this is the first time I actually got to sit down and talk to you face to face. When you knocked out Stephen Ridley, do you think that completely changed the trajectory of not only the game, but the destiny of the Baltimore Ravens that year?
Oh, yes. I mean, you look at, I tell people all the time, right? Like, when people try to throw shots at me and think they're offending me when they're like, okay, Bernard, you're not in the Hall of Fame, or Bernard, you didn't do this or didn't do that. I played the game. I had a rough upbringing, right? Like, I fought every day of my life, whether it was other people or whether it was my father. Like, I fought. Every Friday night was a fight with me and my dad. So it's one of those things where I've never played this game to be in the Hall of Fame. I played this game to stay away from home. I played this game once I realized who I was. I played this game to get out from where I was. I played this game to put fear in other men. I hit people well. That's what I did. I never once claimed to be
yes, you did.
This interception guy, right? I don't, that's not who I was. Like, I dropped, I think it was 14 to 15 interceptions my first or second year in the league. I mean, I didn't want to catch the ball. I wanted to hit people. And so, I got 12 in my career, but I got, 14 I dropped in 1 year. I got probably another 8 I dropped the next year. So that I never played this game for that. I love contact. I love contact. I love, watching a grown man across from me, buckle up because he doesn't want to catch a ball, or, to hear a man scream, that's what I live for, right? Like, I study film accordingly. And once again, going back to what Ozzie said, and I knew I was, but at the end of the day, I was a piece that Baltimore needed to close the gap, because they were going to AFC championships. They were losing games in the second round of the playoffs. They were going to the playoffs. Everybody knew they were a good team, but it was something that they was missing. And when you look at that hit, and you look at the hits throughout the first year or so, 2 years that I was there, like, we established dominance in that secondary where you was going to get hit. Whether Ed did it, I did it, our corners, Webby, Webby was a little guy that could hit. That's what we did.
That was one of the most memorable plays of that stretch run. The Mile High Miracle, the interception in overtime in Denver. But you knocking out Ridley was out before he hit the ground, and that, I think personally, that was the turning today, because the Patriots avoided the rest of the game. They wanted no piece of you, and then on top of that, they folded when it mattered, and then you guys make the magical run to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. Roger Goodell turns the lights out, and then we still win the game. I wanted to ask you now, we got past your glory, your glory years with the Ravens and the Super Bowl championship. I know that had to be a great feeling as a player, to the penultimate prize.
Right.
They've really policed hitting out of the game in the last 5 years. I know right now that you would probably be the most penalized and fined player on the Baltimore Ravens squad with the way that you hit people. And I'm not saying that it was dirty or reckless, but you had organized chaos and the way you hit people, along with Ray and Ed and Haloti. The Ravens defense wouldn't be able to play in half the games because of the violence. How do you feel about that portion of the game in today's NFL?
Well, man, it's harder to watch because the way that how I explain it to people is when you look at the game of football today, it's like they've taken the aggression from the defensive players and completely given it to the offense. And so they've made it harder to play defense in the National Football League. And I don't think that that's fair. When I hear fans and I hear analysts or announcers, when a running back or a receiver carries the ball, the first thing they want to label him as, or the title they want to give him is, he's a violent runner. Well, that's this game. This game is violence. So you're okay with calling him a violent runner, but then when we have a violent hit, all of a sudden, oh wait, we got a flag. Oh wait, he should be ejected. Oh wait, that should be a fine. I don't think that that's fair. I truly believe that, there are ways we do have to. They've done a good job of getting the cheap shots out of the game. You know what I mean? Like the cheap shots that happen. I think we all understand if you're intentionally going in to collide and to knock somebody smooth out, hitting them helmet to helmet, right? But I tell people all the time, my head is connected to my shoulders. So when I'm trying to hit you with my shoulder, at some point in time, this is going to graze. If we didn't have helmets on, probably it wouldn't graze as much as it would, but that helmet is actually bigger. So when I hit you with my shoulder pad, I'm going to graze you. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. And so I think that the competition committee, the rules committee, they've got to do a better job with, calling down to the crews, because two things. They got to do a better job calling down to the crews to let them know, like, that's not a fine. Let's keep the game moving, right? Like, they're capable of doing that. These games go long enough. They can get somebody in the ear quick enough where the replay, the technology is outstanding. It's like the camera you got right now. It's clear as all get out. So they can go and they can call down real quick to tell them to keep the game going. The ref can pick the flag up, wave it off, and we keep playing. But then, two, we have to look at it and we have to say, okay, well, all the different crews you look at week in and week out with every different crew, sometimes you like, oh, whoa, they're allowing some hits to happen in this game. But then you look at another game, you're like, okay, a flag every other drive because of a hit. So it's just like, it's not consistent with the crews. And of course, some crews are going to be different. But I'm sorry that every ref, a part of a crew, has two eyes, and they're getting paid to see. And certain positions.
That's very true.
So we've got to do a better job.
I can see the frustration, and as fans, it frustrates us too, because the era of football that most of us came up watching or playing is completely different now. It's virtually two-hand touch at this point. I wanted to kind of touch on something that you said. I'm gonna correlate it to your days with the Ravens, and you said that obviously you've been vocal about bumping heads with Harbaugh, and I understand that. There's varying levels that fans will never understand because we're not in that locker room, on that practice field, on that sideline. Do you believe that the way that he has structured this team and the lack of dominant personality and aggressive players, do you believe that what the Ravens are right now is a product of his vision?
100%. I mean, he's a guy that I'm not upset with him. What happened has happened. At some point, do we need to talk it out? Yeah. Will we probably ever talk it out? Probably not. He's a guy that's very insecure. He's a guy that, he doesn't, I've said this and I'll say it again, and this is not a shot to him. You put any head coach in his position, they were winning the Super Bowl with us. Like that. Just John Harbaugh he's not offensively there for the team. He's not defensively there for the team. If he's helping anything, it's potentially special teams, because that's just what he is. He's a special teams coach. When they hired John, they brought him in because they felt like Brian Billick lost the team, because they felt like the team was getting a little too wild. So they wanted to bring in somewhat of a disciplinarian. And so that's why they brought him in, because they felt like the military background, he would get guys in order. So when everybody talk, like, that's where a lot of what happened with us, and forgive me, Matt, I'm moving forward a little bit, but that's where a lot of
You're fine.
that's where a lot of where people go, oh well, it was the meeting with players and you know, everybody kind of going off doing this or doing that, and the players only meeting and where the season turned, like the double downs that he was doing in camp. You know, we were in camp, and so double downs, we understand double downs, but there's a certain point. If you want the best product to be on the football field, you've got to pull, and this is probably the wrong way to use, but you got to pull the whip back. You can't just beat us into the ground. You like, if you want good product on Sunday, Monday, or Thursday, or Saturday, come playoff time or late in the season, you've got to allow us to rest, and you can't beat us down. So when we're telling you that, but you're so bullheaded and you're like, no, I want to do it my way, when you're not a part of offense, defense, and he was helping Jerry out, who was the assistant head coach as far as with special teams, like now we got a problem, because when we seeing our brothers fall on game day and we're seeing injuries, little knick-knack injuries, and we can't play a full 60 minutes because we so dog dead tired from doing all this other stuff, this is where a lot of the problems come in. And so to answer your question, yes, this team is his team. They're good players. When you look at the defensive side of the ball, John Harbaugh really is not, he's not drafting guys. He's not. Like Ozzie, Eric DaCosta, they're drafting guys. The way that they draft defensively, and at some point they're safe offensively. And so this is what they've been doing, and this is what they will continue to do. John Harbaugh is just in the position. He has the head coach title. Everybody else is doing the work. And so when we won the Super Bowl, people don't realize I just negotiated a 3-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens. Well, when we won the Super Bowl, he unlocked powers to be able to potentially make some roster moves. So he wanted to get out everybody that threatened him, and he got rid of a lot of that team. And as when we all had our meeting, you know, when we had our meeting with the team, when we all left from the parade, our goal was to come back and do it again. Yes, we understand we'd have lost Ray, but Ellerby was stepping up. We had guys at linebacker that can go. Of course, they were going to bring guys in, but we had guys that can go. And, you know, they just completely blew that team up. And it sucked. It sucked because we should have won 3 to 4 Super Bowls. No lie, 3 to 4 Super Bowls with that team that we had intact.
Well, a lot of the fans agree, because I'm going to kind of lead into my final question with you. You know, he let you go. He let Ed go. Ed should have never wore another uniform.
I agree.
Bolden was traded for a bag of footballs. Kruger left. Art Jones left. It seems like the core of the team that was young and ready to step up and make that next move went to greener pastures. And I don't blame them. Make your money all the way you can, but there was a definite difference in the post Super Bowl team, because it was more choir boys and fall in line guys, as opposed to the grit and toughness that won us that Super Bowl. And then we sputter for a handful of years. People think that he's getting ready to get fired. And then the young man we have now, Lamar Jackson, comes in, goes on a 7-1 run in 2018, gets us to the Super Bowl, and then goes on to go 14-2 the following year, essentially saving Harbaugh's job. After knowing all that, Bernard, and you've been very vocal about it, and I can't help but agree with some of the things that you said. And now we're in the position where there's a chance we could lose Lamar. Do you think that the coach has anything to do with this situation, or do you think it's more of an organizational front office situation with Lamar that's preventing a deal from getting done?
So, Matt,
because you've negotiated with the same front, you negotiated with this front office,
right? So this is a front office thing. You know, I had just talked with, I forget who it was, with an analyst that was in Fox, and we talked about some stuff with Baltimore. Lamar is a special talent, and I've said this. I think so many people hear certain things that I say, and they just take it as hate. And I don't look at football the way everybody else looks at football, you know. And I say this with all due respect. Fans are fans for a reason. Football players and former football players are football players and were football players for a reason. Not every football player can coach. Not every football player can teach. Not every football player is able to be his own agent, all that other stuff, right? And so when you look at Lamar's situation, Lamar coming in, once again, he's a special talent. I think when you look at everything that is going on with him, he's the guy where after our Twitter thing going back and forth, and once again, and I'll say this, Lamar, I was answering a question on Twitter to somebody else that I apparently tagged Lamar that I didn't know, but Lamar ended up responding, and he was fed up. Now, I tell people this, you don't respond, like you don't respond to things unless they're true. I'm just being honest with you. If a lie is a lie, like, yo, like, whatever. I'm moving on. I'm a former MVP. I'm moving on. But when things are true, they cut to the core. And that's what happened. And so with Lamar I think he's a phenomenal player. When it comes down to the quarterback position, I think he has some things to learn. Were the Ravens handicapping him with this offense that they were running? Yes. I say that, but I'm going to talk out of both ends of my mouth. Yes, I believe they were handicapping him. But I think a couple things that they've done, if they try to run a pro-style offense that everybody's talking about right now, if they try to run that 100% of the time, then you're exposing what Lamar can't do. So you had to scheme up some things to allow his athleticism to kind of take over, and then that opened up windows in the run game. And so when we look at the contract disagreement and everything else, Lamar is a quarterback, right? Like, he's a guy that won an MVP. He's a guy that was essentially the face of the league, top selling jersey. He's a guy that should have had an agent. You can't let mama do this. He can't do this. Lamar should have had some kind of somebody behind him. Anybody would have came on for 1% of his contract. Anybody. He should have had an agent, because I don't believe we're talking about this right now. If he had an agent taking 1%, and Lamar wouldn't even been on the field at the end of the day. At the start of the 2022 season, he wouldn't have been on the field. An agent wouldn't even allow him to be on the football field. And so when I talk about that, Matt, why am I saying that? Because when it all goes to it, like, he played the season. After our little spat, let me rewind a little bit. After our spat on Twitter, we end up talking on Instagram and things of that nature. And I told him, I said, look, bro, if you're upset at me because of my criticism towards you, that's a you problem. That's not my problem at all. I've done what I did. I am not you. I don't ever compare myself to you. You are a quarterback. We never played in the same era. You said you would have ran me over if you would have played with me. Boy, I'd have broke you in half. But nevertheless, you've got to understand you are a quarterback, and you are the face of. They can't do anything without you. This offense is catered to you. The roster is catered to you. Why are you stepping on the football field? Like he told me, I'm not going to let them play me. I said, Lamar, if you step on that football field, they played you. You know, what he's got to understand, business is going to do what they do. Business, they're not budget. The Ravens want you to step out as any other organization. They want you to step out because they want you to think, oh, we're friends. We're friends. Just play for us. We'll take care of you. Oh, we'll get you a contract. We'll negotiate that. No, they won't. They won't. Because if they would have got you a contract, you would have been you wouldn't have played under this 1 year deal. If they wanted to get you a contract, you're an MVP. Why are you playing under a 1 year deal? You know what I mean? Everything is catered to you.
Very good point.
Don't step out there on that football field. They're playing him, and they will continue to play him. And for me, they're saying everything that sounds good right now. Oh, we're working to try to get negotiations back going and everything else. If I'm Lamar, okay, let's do what we do. I'm never stepping on the field for you ever again until I have a contract. And potentially, they could trade him, get as much capital as they can, because I think they understand. I think there's a lot of verbiage in the contract contractually that's hindering Lamar from signing it, number one. There's a lot of verbiage in that contract that is not in his favor. And the Ravens know that. Same thing. I'll tell you this about me, Matt. When I signed my deal, all of us, everybody that was going to re-sign with Baltimore, when I re-signed my deal, everybody else that was up to re-sign and everybody was going to take less money. So we all stay together. I was supposed to get a certain amount of money. Ozzie said, Bernard, I can't give you that money. I said, why? He said, because Bernard, we love what you bring to the table. But because of what you bring to the table, we fear what you bring to the table. And I'm like, okay, explain. Bernard, you are a hitter. We're afraid that you're going to knock yourself out hitting people. Ozzie, I ain't never knocked myself out hitting nobody. So they love Lamar. They love what he brings to the table. But in the last couple of years, we've seen Lamar's been getting injured. He ain't running away from everybody like he did first year and a half of his career. He ain't running away from everybody like he did. And that's a given. Father Time is undefeated. We all understand that. But the language in the contract. So, hey, Lamar, we got a contract for you, but you get hurt. You got to pay such and such back, or you don't get this, or you don't get that. And so Lamar probably looking at, and I'm pretty sure he has somebody, an attorney or somebody overlooking the verbiage, because his mom doesn't understand the verbiage. And that's not an attack on her. He doesn't understand the verbiage, and that's not an attack on him. But the way that agents put things, that's why agents can help him. He would, like I said, 1%, and he would have been taken care of if he would have did that.
Because the Bengals came out today and said they're going to negotiate with Joe in the offseason, and Herbert's up for an extension as well. So it's going to cost a lot of money to the Ravens or somebody else. But I know that you said that you had to provide some Uber services for this that you have. I want to thank you for coming on the show, Bernard. It's been a great interview with you. I really appreciate you joining the show from some time from your family. Before I let you get out of here, man, let everybody know what you got going on, where they can find you on social media.
Oh, man, everybody know where they can find me. They don't like me, Matt. Hey, man, dude,
I like you. That's all that matters. I like you.
Hey, I appreciate that, bro. No, man, I'm enjoying life. NASCAR season is around the corner. I'm actually going to be at the Clash in LA, doing all kind of stuff with Ally and NASCAR, and I talk football here and there. But at the same time, brother, like once again, I'm blessed, brother, and I'm enjoying life. And so, yeah, man, this was a lot of fun, man. This really was a lot of fun. We got to do it again.
Absolutely, Bernard. Thank you so much for coming on. That'll wrap up the show, folks. You can hang around for a minute on post show, and we'll get you out of here, man.
All right, brother.